As I got another rhyme, another rhythm for y'all to listen. I'm never quitting on my mission, I'ma roll with what I'm giving. Got some ambition, this new edition, filling positions. Looking at the void in myself and feeling what's missing. Better watch the way you going, better go in the right direction. In the moment you stressing, but you gon' be counting blessings. And I know that for certain, keep on working, open curtains. Haters swerving, cause they ain't ready for your final version. Whoa. I'm never gonna give up, fall down, I just gotta get up, yeah.
You're listening to the Tom Ficklin Show on WNHH-LP 103.5 FM, your home for community radio.
7 years, 6.5 years, and then went back. By the time I became the health director, I was already, I was practicing in the practice of public health, and became an adjunct professor at Southern.
Mm-hmm.
And I did that for 8 years. And as many people know, health director's position is quite political. So with the changing of mayors or political scenarios that you come and you go. And so I moved over to Southern full time. I realized that I needed to have another avenue in which to do what I wanted to do around health education and health promotion, not realizing, Tom, that all my life, I had been doing public health and didn't know it. I just recently came back from visiting with my sister, and I was saying to her, I said, we were so ahead of our times when we were younger with doing health fairs and back to school fairs and giving out turkeys at Thanksgiving. The things that we were doing 10, 20, maybe 20, 25 years ago, it's now popular. I tell my students that, at the age of 14, I had my own youth group and was doing presentations on teenage pregnancy prevention, not knowing that was health education and health promotion, right? And, even as I met you, Tom, I can remember, doing the leadership program, the Connecticut Health Fellowship.
Yes.
Program, I think was where we initially came together. And so, yes, my career, my road, but now I'm full-time tenured, and I say that word tenure because it means a lot in the field of academia. And there are not a lot of us, not a lot of people of color that are tenured, and there, especially when you break it down to gender, there's less than 5% of us that are women in at higher ed that are women of color and African American especially. So this book really was a book, a collaborative from the heart, right? Bringing together some of these voices.
What's the title of the book again?
The title of the book is Navigating Academia During COVID-19, Perspectives and Strategies from BIPOC Women. And my colleague, Dr. Anuli Unjoku, and myself worked very collaboratively with our chapter and authors to bring this about. And it came about because we were talking in the midst of COVID, when COVID first hit, holding each other up, talking about survival and talking about many of the things, the themes in our book. And we decided that we were going to do a presentation. Started off as a presentation we did virtually at a conference called NCORE, which is Race and Ethnicity, a national conference on race and ethnicity. We did that virtually. Then we went from doing a presentation to turning the presentation into a paper that we wrote. And then we said, how about let's see if we can take this a step further and work on a book together.
Yes, you're right.
And so it was really born out of, love and support of colleagues trying to just get through COVID. And as we reached out, I think one of the hardest things was we wanted to endeavor to include the indigenous voices. And although I know people who are indigenous and being here in Connecticut, I thought that would be relatively easy. It was harder than we thought to actually get somebody to commit to write a chapter, but we did it, and it was right in our own backyard. So thank goodness about that. So we're quite proud that we, have included a diverse group of scholars from the East Coast to the West Coast. Yeah.
Marian, even this is not a trick question, but if COVID hadn't happened, would you still have would had the inspiration or the idea about the need for this book to kind of share people's stories?
So that's a great question, Tom. So I think, so let me just tell you where it was.
Yeah.
I initially was the only female of color in the Department of Public Health at Southern. And I became the only tenured female, tenure track female. We had others come and go, but no one stayed. And so I was the first that once I made up my mind, a little bit, once I made up my mind that Southern was where I wanted to stay and this would be my next venture. I was the only one. And it's a little bit different because I have male colleagues of color. To Dr. You might know Dr. John Nwangu and Dr. Stanley Bernard. Stanley's from Bridgeport, and Dr. Nwangu's from this area. And although I had male colleagues of color who helped and encouraged me along the way, it's nothing like, and I'll just share a secret with you, but it's nothing like a female understanding female issues of care and caregiving, and it's just different. It's just a different dynamic as far as I'm concerned, and I say that because it's probably my bias, right? My bias is, all my life I started off at high school at an all-girls Catholic high school, so I understand the dynamics of sisterhood and female empowerment, and so I would say that I don't know if it would have come about the way it came about during COVID time, but I know that COVID ushered that need of staying connected. And I say this because, at least this is my perspective, because when my colleague Anuli came, she came during the midst of COVID. She came, during COVID, she moved her family from Michigan. And I knew that I wanted her to stay. I knew that in order to have a colleague, stay, we already had similar interests, that I need to make sure that she was okay, her family was settled, and things like that.
Yes.
And so as we talked about those issues, right, those issues outside of the ivory tower and outside of it, to where getting settled living, apartment versus housing and things like that. I was trying to make sure that she had as many supports as needed, and one of the supports was us coming together on a regular basis on Zoom during COVID to just talk about ideas, talk about what was going on. And we will always have like a little session, first of all, personal session, right, about whatever was going on in our lives. And then we would get down to the business of work or whatever we were working on or thinking about, right? So I think that COVID was just the time and the place, right, that brought it all together.
Marian, tease, and definitely thanks for sharing the context and the impetus. Share with us a little bit about, tease us with some of the chapter titles, just to, we do, just curious.
So Tom, and remind me please, sir, is this recording visual as well, or
yes, absolutely. You can hold it up, the audio as well as the video, so people can see your holiday red dress, red sweater.
I'm not sure if people can see the title of the book. There we go. Maybe.
Okay. So let's have the title again and share with us a few of the titles of the chapters.
So, Navigating Academia During COVID-19, Perspectives and Strategies from BIPOC Women, edited by Anuli Njoku and Marian Evans.
All right.
So let me just share with you some of the titles, because I think that's important too. And my colleague and I, we sort of do a whole presentation about how our journeys and how this came to be. So some of the titles I think that stand out is Dr. Boudreau of Southern Connecticut did a title called Self-Identification in Black, Red, Brown, and White, a clarion call to address medical racism in Native American communities. And then we can go on to Dr. Brandon Hutchinson, who's also, we have about 6 scholars from Southern in the book. And Brandon Hutchinson did a chapter called "A Lesson for My Daughters, Taught to Me by Bell." And my colleague, Dr. Njoku, her sister, who's a gifted administrator in her own right in New Jersey, wrote a chapter for us. Her name is Uchenna Baker, and talked about the gift of ontological inquiry. And then we have celebrating Ramadan during COVID. We have a chapter on grief and bereavement. You might know this sister, Dr. Cheryl Green. She used to be at Southern. She's no longer at Southern.
I see.
She's in nursing, but she wrote a chapter on grief and bereavement during COVID-19, funeralization and ritual losses. We had someone who, one of the ones that I enjoy immensely, because I'm now going through, I started off, once we got the hardcover of the book, going back through just the Southern authors, right? And rereading, not for editing's sake, but rereading for the gift of content and messaging and things like that. And so one of our former grad students in the Department of Public Health, she wrote a chapter called Grow Through What You Go Through. And then Dr. Loida Reyes at Southern talked about leading in color in academia, a Latinx chair's experience of resiliency and hope. We have Dr. Epps. She did navigating realities while maintaining perspective during COVID. We had one that was really interesting by one of our authors, our scholar authors, who talked about teaching calculus. Dr. Dent, teaching calculus of coronavirus 19. I mean,
yes, right. Isn't that something?
Isn't that something, right? I wrote a chapter on acing the Black trauma of COVID-19, the COVID-19 pandemic, and then my colleague wrote. We co-wrote some chapters together, Spaces to Heal, Providing the Table and Seats, my coping resources and self-care during COVID-19, police brutality and social unrest. And it's a win-win, faculty mentored research with students of color. My colleague did a chapter with one of the grad students. And that's just a few of the titles. We have about 20 chapters and 22 authors. So it was really a labor of love, bringing beautiful, beautiful women of color together to write about their not only trauma, but hope and resiliency. So
and Marian, you know, that's so with the variety and the different subject areas, just as you were going through the menu, there's so much for everyone. Tell me about target market. Who do you think could profit or benefit from reading the book?
I think that anyone could benefit just reading some of the stories, and I want to I'll share a little tidbit of why. I have lots of tidbits, but I'll share a little tidbit of why. But really, higher ed, teachers, educators, administrators, anybody interested in understanding some of the challenges and hopefulness of why people are in higher ed and administration, or even why people leave. If you're thinking about leaving. So I think it's a little bit for everyone, especially the universal stories, right?
Yes.
But target, if you had to ask me about target, I would say higher ed, faculty, staff, administrators, and others. So,
And but no, I mean, just elaborate on that, and then I want to kind of follow up. It seems to me also, Marian, that if I'm a undergraduate student or even a graduate student and
oh
kind of
yes,
receiving, and even some high school students that are trying to juggle their careers, we hear so much about folks not going into the teaching profession, and it seems to me that this kind of gives some inspiration, hope, as well as guidance.
absolutely,
But
absolutely.
share with us a little bit about the essay that you contributed, the chapter that you contributed.
Oh, you want to know much?
Well, just a little bit, we still want people.
Okay.
And by the way, is the book available? It's on Amazon or what's it?
Yes, yes, I
Mhm.
can make sure that I put a link
Okay,
before we
great,
leave. I'll put a link to the
great.
book, and I also have I can if I can take a look because we have some like vouchers for people to be able to use a code
Mhm.
as they purchase the book. It just came out in September, so it's really hot off the press.
Hot off the press. Excellent,
Yeah. So
excellent.
so I'll share oh my, this is the first you're doing the first time.
I'm,
Uh
I'm pleased to be able to seize the opportunity, and even as you kind of think about what you want to say,
yeah,
it just seems to me it's just a good chance for people to see that. I get the impression that the chapters and the authors were really just truly speaking from the heart.
yes, yes, yes.
And I think that that's so profound and needed these days. Full transparency and just laying your journey out, and there's so much, you know, discontent going on in the world. We don't have to mention the Middle East or Ukraine, but we can see in next year, 2024 is going to be such a volatile year in terms of the presidential election and
Yes,
the cross currents of ideology that we're going to hear
yes,
from various
yes,
segments. So just books like yours, I think for people to be, in my mind, it will help people to become grounded, to become,
yes,
to be, and to keep,
yes.
and to keep their eyes on their own particular prize.
So Tom, here I'll just start off by saying um my chapter has to do with adverse childhood experiences. They're called short, abbreviated, called ACEs, and
Mm-hmm.
there are traumatic events that happen between the ages of 0 and 18 years of age. And
Mm.
there's a lot of information out there about these ACE experiences and what people think they mean and things like that. They're preventable, people should know, and they've related and linked them to many poor health outcomes and health challenges that can happen throughout a person's lifespan. So I
Mm-hmm.
just wanted to give that sort of background of what I'm talking about when I talk about ACEs. So during COVID-19, I came across a quiz.
Mm.
And as I read this quiz, it made me think about all of the Black families that I know in my life, family and friends, who have probably experienced some of these questions and had this. So I wrote, during COVID-19, I came across 10-question ACE quiz. Reading the questions, I was overcome with the enormity of Black trauma contained in those 10 questions.
Mm.
The quiz reflected my own story as well as those of Black students, women, and families, traumas that were magnified by the impact of 3 pandemics: COVID-19, economic inequities, and systemic racism.
Mm.
And then I'm going to skip, and I talk about myself in particular, right? Because it's almost like preaching, right? You should start with yourself first. And I gave little tidbits, right, about some of the questions that the quiz went through. But I think that what I want to do is I want to skip, because
Okay.
they talk about protective factors versus what are risk factors as you answer the quiz. And I just talk about, going through my life. So now I'll read a little bit more. It says,
Okay.
according to the CDC, there are 6 protective factors: nurturing and attachment, knowledge of parenting and of child and youth development, parental resilience, social connections, concrete supports for parents, and social and emotional competence for children. The Black church, faith, and religion provided at least 4 or 5 of the factors for both parents and children. Religion, without a doubt, was a protective factor in my adolescence.
Mm-hmm.
This came to me directly through my best friend, and I talk about my best friend, which led me to the evangelical Protestant church, and things like that. And then I go on to talk about a little bit more about George Floyd's murder in May of 2020. And how just after 2 months after COVID-19 lockdown, it signaled awakening around police brutality for many people. There have been countless others before him, but social media and real-time cameras made Floyd different from Emmett Till, Medgar Evers, Malcolm X, Bobby Seale, and a host of others who had no names. At first, I refused to watch the video. Why would I want to watch another Black man die at the hands of historically sanctioned blue killers? I heard the audio first, and a familiar sadness filled me. I don't watch horror films because I believe we have enough real world horror. Though I had initially avoided the video of Floyd, I saw it one day on the news. And then I'll jump down a little bit, Tom, and it led me to write a poem because of the feelings and emotions that I felt. My oldest niece, and I write, my oldest niece, as difficult as the public loss of Floyd was, I was also experiencing personal loss as well, which the ACEs quiz might call risk factors. So my oldest niece passed away in March 2020. My cousin passed away in April of 2021. My oldest sister passed away in May 2021, along with several other losses of family and friends. Like many people, there was a huge toll of COVID-19, and I turned to the arts to release the pain and the pressure. And I wrote a poem called Ode to Breath. And then I include my poem in my chapter that I wrote on Ode to Breath. It says, I'm exhausted, downright bone tired. It is just beyond me right now. Breathe. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold, breathe out. Coronavirus, I can't breathe. Ventilators, quarantining, social distancing, people distancing, death and destruction, COVID-19 mass, breathe. Slavery to modern day lynching, protests, anti-racism. New normal is not normal. Undoing racism. Allies, advocates, caucuses. I can't breathe. Cats and ships, bottles, syringes, vaccines, contact tracing, post-convalescence, double, toil and trouble. When will it stop? How do I make it stop? I can't breathe. Breathe. Will it ever change? Has it ever changed? Is there herd immunity from hatred, white supremacy, and racism? I can't breathe. Breathe. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold, breathe out. And I asked my best girlfriend, who's an artist and academician in her own right at Morgan, to do some artwork. She does art. It's called Art with Words. And so I included a picture of the art that she did.
Oh, tremendous.
That goes along with the poem. And one of the things I say, Tom, in my chapter is, What ACE score would George Floyd, Trayvon Martin, Breonna Taylor, Emmett
Mm,
Till, Malcolm X, Martin Luther King Jr., Mahatma Gandhi, and John Lewis receive?
mm, mm.
Floyd had risk factors for sure, but did he have protective factors? If he did, they were obviously not enough. As I contemplate the impact of COVID-19, which has no doubt spurred the onset of more ACEs, I am
Mm-hmm.
reminded that the risk factors will reverberate long after the country heals from the last 4 years and moves towards living with COVID-19 symbiotically. As Black faculty, and I talk about it is imperative to recognize ACEs and their risk factors and protective factors and their personal trauma in our own lives and in the lives of our students, to recognize and contemplate how they might manifest in the classroom and on campus. It is necessary to prevent further trauma and implement trauma-informed practices to counteract the damaging effects of ACEs and COVID-19 on our collective and future lives.
Mm, 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 mm.
And that's
Marian, the title again of
it's
the book?
the title of the book is Navigating Academia During COVID-19: Perspectives and Strategies from BIPOC Women.
And it's available on Amazon.
It is available on Amazon, and I will make sure that you get the link.
All right.
I include the link here.
Are you guys considering any book signings per se?
I would love it. I would love it, Tom.
Mhm.
We're just talking and thinking about um how to expand. We'll
Mhm.
probably do something for sure on tour or as part of a book signing in the spring, this upcoming
Mhm. Mhm.
spring. And we're thinking about, maybe with you being part of the community, how to do a few more things in the community.
Sure.
And have because we have authors from the East Coast to the West Coast, we've also invited them, like the sister that wrote about calculus and teaching students calculus, right?
Mhm.
She's in New York. But then we have, people on the West Coast as well. And so as they gear up, right, knowing that the book came out in the fall, if they do anything that we might be able to join in virtually,
Mhm. Mhm.
to invite them as well, some of the authors, if they have the time, as we move on. I know a couple of authors have said that they would love to. So I actually just wrote a piece, a proposal for
Mhm.
Southern's Women in Gender Studies conference that we have coming up in the spring. Sort
Yes.
of do a book reading panel with excerpts from some of the authors where
Mhm.
they get to read pieces
Good.
in their chapter. And so that'll be coming up. I believe the conference is in April, but I can get you that
Sure.
information as well.
Sure. And Marian, just when you were reading, it was really heartfelt from your particular chapter. My mind went to some of the students that you had the blessing to be in front of, and they have the blessing to be in front of you. Share with us some of the courses you're teaching and how this book kind of informs that to whatever degree. Because it seems to me your life experience, your academic training, the recent book, what's on it, and just the whole uh, the discipline of public health is kind of evolving. I think people would certainly understand it's more important than ever before. I'm curious about
Yeah.
the intersection, if you will, between the students, your book, what you just read, and your
Yeah.
courses.
You know, I must say that one of the things that I worried about tremendously, Tom, and as you saw play out as well, is, especially around the divide, technology divide that we have here in our
Mm,
country. And so as we were going on lockdown, it was not only would they have the technology and internet that they needed to continue and finish out the year, but also did they have a place to go to, a safe place, right? For many students, going away to college is a safe space for them. They're getting away from whatever they came from at home, right? Not everybody has a good home life, right? And I worried about some of those students that, I knew that going home wouldn't be the best option for them, and how they would handle it and whether they would be able to finish. So I teach, I'm affiliated faculty as well in the women and gender study. And because of my background, Tom, I teach a basic course at the undergraduate level in women's health. And I've taught a variety of classes in public health, everything from introduction to public health to health and society to environment at the graduate level, environmental health, and several other intro classes. So that's actually for me the beauty of public health. And one of the things that I love about Southern, and people ask me all the time, well, why are you at Southern? Is because I see Southern students like myself who have come through and conquered, right? And are conquering, I should say. People talk about, thriving and surviving kind of thing. And those are all stages, right? I can remember those stages and things like that. And so I think that I am needed at Southern, right? And we all want to feel needed, right? And so I feel that I'm needed at Southern, and at least that is what my students tell me.
And you guys have a new building over there, right? You have a new
we have a new health and human services building located 493 Fitch Street. We love to give tours to people in the community. So if you want to come see the building, I'd be happy to bring you through the building and show you the building. Have you seen the building yet? Have you walked through?
Yeah, there's been various tours of organizations that I've been affiliated with. Yes. So and I think that's just a testimony as well to just the growth and the interest, and just economics always impacts everything. But to build a new building and the new business school at Southern as well. So Southern's on the move.
Yes. And now is the time, right? I don't know if we were on air yet, but you had mentioned earlier our interim dean president, Dr. Smith, Dr. Dwayne Smith, who we're delighted to have with us, and who has embraced myself, actually, even before Dr. Smith was officially sworn in as the interim president. We were on the diocese together at an event down in Bridgeport. So, I am so elated to have him, to have his leadership at the university right now. And you and I know that there's been several other persons of color, at least one other one that I knew since I've been at Southern. And I'll just say this, it's always a particular time, right? When we're allowed to have leadership, or invited to step up for leadership that we've been doing in the community for a long time. And so I think that Dr. Smith is the right person for the job at hand, especially as we move forward in the future.
And I certainly concur. Marian, you mentioned some of the words of systemic racism, and you didn't say implicit bias or explicit bias, but certainly the George Floyd episode kind of illustrates those dynamics. It's kind of a cliche question that I have. For me, when I hear this term systemic racism, I mean, it doesn't necessarily operate artificially, although with artificial intelligence, it is going to start operating without human control. But there's still some. Well,
we're going to see it manifest there too, as well, because artificial intelligence is only as intelligent as the coders, and so as people who code for artificial intelligence bring their own biases into their coding, we'll see it, or we've already seen it. So
talk about that a little bit. Are we still fighting the battle like crazy, or there's any reasons for hope, or what would you say to a young person about in terms of the George Floyd and even the Rodney King mantra of can we all get along? When a student kind of comes to you that he or she might be a little depressed about the future, what do you want to say to them to kind of encourage them to keep their eyes on the prize?
Well, Tom, you and I, you and I have been doing this for a long time, right? So I think there's always hope. There's always hope. There's always hope that, and things have, there's always hope for the future. Although I've heard people talk, and I'm surprised. I've heard people say, that especially with this upcoming presidential election, right? And living through what we've just lived through, that they're not as hopeful. I think, most of my life I've seen the theme of that is no reason to give up, right? So that's the race is not given. And so I always think that there's hope, and I always try to share hope with our students. Absolutely, there is hope. And the dark comes before the dawn,
so Marian, frame it in the context of public health, because again, in terms of public health, our psychic health, just our mental health, all these, that's public health is about, humanity kind of thriving and being healthy and not addicted to hate or not addicted to drugs. Talk about the role of public health, because it seems to me that this is such, theology is important, science is important, and obviously public health is science, but talk about this public health thing. I know as I talk to more friends, I've been impressed with the number of folks interested in public health or taking courses in public health, if not a major. So it seems to me that you're you mentioned the word evangelism, the evangelistic role of public health now has perhaps been, you guys could be on top of mind.
Well, Tom, I'm the coordinator. I'm also the coordinator. I'm an associate professor at Southern Connecticut State University, but I'm also the coordinator for the Masters in Public Health program. And we have a wonderful public health program. And so I am actually the person that goes through the missions that allows students to come in to our MPH program, or Masters in Public Health. And one of the things that I say as I talk to people, especially because I have a practice background as well, is that the beauty of public health is its broadness. Although my personal take is that you have to remember history as well, right? Because when we don't remember history, we repeat it. And we've seen that over and over again. And so we can just talk about pandemics, right? We can talk about emerging infectious disease. And I find it amazing, whether we're talking about flu, when I was in, it was the flu and H1N1 and then COVID, that some of the basics that we tend to forget about, things like covering your cough and washing your hands, it is a theme that goes through, whether it's a pandemic lasting 4 years, the flu, or many of the other things that we deal with in public health. So a lot of times, Tom, I get people walking up to me and they say, well, what exactly is public health? And I say, as an example, when you turn on your tap to drink water,
that's right,
does your water give you diarrhea?
That's right.
Or do you get sick when you drink your water? And they said no. And I said, that's public health. Public health is in front and behind the scenes.
That's right. When you go into a restaurant, when you go to a restaurant, or when you stop at, although there's another message around fast food, but we know people eat fast food. So KFC, Burger King, McDonald's, all those other places, Popeyes, all those other places that we know people eat.
the reason why you don't get sick or have to go to the hospital after you eat that food is because of public health and the things that public health, the regulations that public health has put into place. So it's not only education, but there's a regulation and a policy component of it. And it is so broad. Can you be working at Sikorsky's and do public health? Absolutely. We call those people industrial hygienists, right? Can you run a workplace, a work company wellness and be doing public health? Absolutely, right? That's part of health promotion and health education. The broadness of what public health is, the I would say under the regulations, you know, the authority and agency that public health has, people don't understand. And as you practice, you understand. So to be able to say to someone, you know, I can remember cases where, you know, someone carrying something like TB, and we don't know about TB cases all the time because of what public health does in the community every day. But you know, in public health, we have the authority to come back, to confine somebody, right? And we do it a little bit different than they did it back in the 1800s, but we still have that authority, right? And we
is it when you go into the beach, you know, there's a reason that it's safe for you to go to the beach.
Right, absolutely, absolutely. And there's a reason why when we close the beach, there's a reason why we do that, right? Thing. Yes, so, you know, I think it's a continuous work that we have to do to help people understand how, you know, or when I'm telling a student how to explain to their parents what public health is, right? And giving those examples and things like that, that it is one of the best kept secrets. And it is intersectional, right? And so can you be interested in behavioral health and psychology and do public health? Absolutely. We call those people behavioral designers, right? So I mean, you know, I could just come back.
I was so anxious for you to share that, because sometimes we hear these disciplines of either sociology or history, but the public health is creative, innovative, and it's truly about our survival from a micro and macro level. So for people to kind of understand that to need that, as well as to be public health communicators, is just so key. Marian, as we kind of wind down, you mentioned Penn State, and I went to Bucknell, so I've been on your been Penn State from time to time. But you were recently also.
I went to Swarthmore, so you're part of the consortium.
Pennsylvania. So, but you were in, was it one of the Caribbean islands more recently?
Yes, Tom. I was in Barbados.
Okay, working, of course. I mean, working.
Yeah. Yes.
Absolutely.
I combined site visits with a little pleasure, my birthday weekend. But yes, in March of this year, we're going to be taking 8 students to Barbados to do a study abroad during spring break. And the theme is arts, history, and culture. And I went to visit the University of West Indies and met with some fabulous faculty there that we're partnering with to give the students a wonderful experience. And so we'll have things like one of the history professors is going to give us a full day tour with the in-depth view of history, and he gave me just a little taste, and I'm so excited.
Yes.
We're going to be doing service as well, and so we're going to be partnering with one of the what they call a children's home to do service, and so we're packing with a purpose. It won't be just about sandals. It'll be about how can we be of service. Partnering with a children's home in Barbados and with a senior home in Barbados to bring service and supplies to folks that otherwise it would be harder for them to have. And so we like to combine these study abroad trips, not only understanding our history and our culture, because as you probably know, there is very clear evidence about the role that Barbados played in history with
Mhm.
the slave trade, um,
Mhm.
and Barbados being one of the stops, especially with like South Carolinas and the Carolinas. And so
Yes.
there's some deep history there that we will hear about and we'll explore. And the University of West Indies has a beautiful campus.
Yes.
They have about the same number of students. There's about 7,000, 8,000 students on their campus. It reminds me similar to Southern's campus of both a commuter campus and a residential campus. So that mix,
Mhm.
and we are looking forward to it. So I was there to check out the hotel, where we're going to be staying, solidify some of the itinerary um, while we're going to be there. And then, of course, we will also put in a little fun time, do some
Sure.
excursions,
Mhm.
um, usually trying to expand the students' boundaries. So
Yes.
Barbados will be in March, but we did Puerto Rico with 8 students as well back in January of this year. We did a Puerto Rico trip that COVID had interrupted.
Mm.
And this is a trip that's being done with some people that you probably know. So the University Access Program at Southern provides access to a university and college education for students that otherwise might not be thinking about going to college.
Oh,
And
good. Good.
um,
Good.
uh, it includes programs like New Haven Promise and Promise Scholars. It includes PASS programs, and it includes the Mr. James Barber's SEOP
Mhm.
program students,
Mhm.
things like that. So that all comes under the umbrella of the University Access Program. And so for me, Tom, there's always a method to my madness, and I'm intentional, right?
Yes.
So me, I understand the importance of what travel abroad and traveling, the experience of traveling gives to a student, and how important it is to just help people see diverse perspectives, right? And because I did lots of traveling, I love traveling. I don't mind traveling by myself.
Mhm.
uh, but so for me, because of my love and interest, I wanted intentionally to try to help students that many of our students have never been outside of Connecticut,
Mhm. Mhm.
have never traveled abroad. Maybe they've traveled to New York, Massachusetts. And so as we look at the students that we want to bring, they have to do an application. And that is part of what we're thinking about. We want students that otherwise would not have had opportunity. By going to Barbados, we intentionally are going to a island of color, right? A
Mhm.
Black island,
Mhm.
Caribbean. We want students. We're pushing them to get passports. So I think out of the 8, maybe 3 or 4 didn't have passports. So now by going on a trip, they'll be required to get a
Yes.
passport, which then will open the door for them to be able to travel outside the country as well, right? So there's
Excellent.
a lot of things going on.
Excellent. Excellent.
Um,
A lot of things going on in your young age. Marian, as we kind of let's take the next 8 or 9, 7, 8 minutes as we wind down. I want to kind of ask a related question about feminism
mm,
and women's rights and where we are in that movement. You referenced earlier on the power of sisterhood. I was just reading the other day. We know about 1919 in America about women finally having the white women in particular having the right to vote. But England, it wasn't until 1928 that women in England even some women like in 1922, 23, if your husband, if you or your husband owned property, you could vote. And then in 28, it became more universal for women. But I think we neglect, and I'm not a feminist study scholar, but I think we neglect not understanding this that women have been oppressed and maybe continually are in some ways. So I
yes.
guess wanted to give you a chance to kind of speak about that. And what would you say to some of the younger women coming up because it's an embarrassment when I read, I just assumed England, women could vote earlier on, and particularly before us, but it was just an embarrassment even until 1919 that people just the importance of that. Does that mean that every election that was held before 1919 was illegitimate? But I digress. But what are your thoughts about the and I don't even want to, it sounds judgmental to say the women's movement or the burn your bra movement, but this issue of patriarchy, we hear that term a lot. So let me shut up and just hear your thoughts in that regard.
Well, Tom, as a teacher, educator of women's health, I don't think that you could do that topic justice without bringing in some feminist components. And I talk about it from a stance of consciousness, and it is that I want my students to understand why they think the way they think, why they do some of the things they do. Where did they get that thinking from? Was it their family? Is it the media and social media now that has such an influence? And to understand, like to be able to think. I'll give you an example. One of my students said to me one time, she said, "Rarely do I take a class where I get to think about what I think about things, right? And where I stand on certain issues, and why I might think that I think one way, and as I think about what the influences might be on how I think about things, right?" And that's in student language. Right? We can add, our academic language to that. But I really think that is my goal. When I think about feminism and what I want my students to learn out of my class, it's about their consciousness, about who they are in the world and where some of this comes from. Why is there so much around our agency, around reproductive and our sexual and reproductive health? Where did that come from? And where did it come from historically, right? Because it's easy to say, oh, social media or my family or, whatever, but there are deep roots, right? Yes. Deep roots, right? On why women are still so persecuted in many different aspects of our lives. And what is it? There is a power. I believe that there is a power, right? And when we talk about feminism and feminists, there is a power for that we need to reclaim as women. And I said, because as animals, as creatures, we are the ones that, can birth a baby and have everything it needs to feed that baby and make sure that baby survives. If you don't want to have children, then you need to know why you don't want to have children and be clear. And to even know that may change. And it's okay if your opinions change, right, on that. But just to be able, as the student said, to just sometimes with our society, as it goes so quickly, to think about what it means, right? Why do I think this way? Why do I do the things that I do? Why do I feel the way I do? And what is going on nowadays? This is not new.
Yes.
Right? This attack on women and sexual and reproductive health, right? This is not new. And just because it is so does not mean that it has to stay that way. Just like we had Roe before, and now Roe has changed. With people, with the power of people and women, we can change it back, right? And you do that, Tom, and I'm saying this with emphasis, and we do that by voting.
Yes.
And that is why next year is going to be such a big year. And so I try to show students as well, not only around their opinions and their thoughts, but why voting, and why it is important from the present day and historical standpoint on how that makes a difference and why that matters in your life.
Yes.
And how you live your life. Yes. And the things that you will have access to, whether it's equal pay, right? Or reproductive health choices, right? things like that. So reproductive justice as I teach about it. Yes.
Excellent. Excellent. So Marian, I mentioned earlier that this was not going to be a one-off, but now in your closing statements, that's 4 more shows, not just 1 or 2 more shows, but 4 more shows we want to do. So I'm being selfish, but I'm naming it and claiming it in 2023.
I just love it, Tom. You've taken me on some twists here, right?
There you go. There you go. Life is a journey.
Yes.
Marian, guess we conclude the title of the book again?
It's Navigating Academia During COVID-19, Perspectives and Strategies from BIPOC Women, edited by Ahnuli Njoku and Marian Evans.
Excellent. Marian, thank you so much. We'll see you soon. Early happy holiday wishes to you, and I guess really appreciate your honesty and your fervor and your passion. It's just so key. The students at Southern are very lucky.
You too, Tom. We just keep on keeping on, right?
That's it.
Yes, indeed. It was a pleasure to talk to you. Thank you so much for inviting me to talk about this wonderful new book that I've been blessed to have the honor of participating in. So
excellent. Take care, dear.
All right.
As I got another rhyme, another rhythm for y'all to listen. I'm never quitting on my mission. I'ma roll with what I'm giving. Got some ambition, this new edition, filling positions. Looking at the void in myself and feeling what's missing. Better watch the way you going, better go in the right direction. In the moment you stressing, but you gon' be counting blessings. And I know that for certain. Keep on working, open curtains, haters swerving, cause they ain't ready for your final version. Whoa. I'm never gonna give up. Fall down, I just gotta get up, yeah.
You're listening to the Tom Ficklin Show on WNHH LP 103.5 FM, your home for community radio.